Hey everybody, today I wanted to show you this project that I created called Fresa. Fresa is a library that helps make WordPress development a little bit more enjoyable for people like me. It's based upon some things that I've experienced in the Ruby and Laravel community, especially based around kind of post models. So in Rails you have Active Record, and in Laravel you have Eloquent models. So just to show you a little bit about Fresa's capabilities, I just wanted to show you an example of a complex project and how that complex project becomes a little bit more manageable with Fresa. So let's hop right in. I have an example project here, which is just a dummy site and a dummy plugin used for showing courses. So let's say you're an online school and you have different courses. You have like math and science courses, and you have categories, different periods that the courses are running, and then courses have your typical title description as well as a couple mated items, cost, and then credits. And then if it's above like 2 credits, you can say it's an advanced course, otherwise it's an intermediate course. So looking at the view for this, it's fairly simple. We're getting a custom post type that I've created called course, and we're just kind of printing out the stuff here. Nothing here should look too out of the ordinary if you're familiar with WordPress development. Inside here, I have a plugin file and a plugin folder I've scaffolded out. This is kind of a map of what I had anticipated to build. I'm pulling in 4 different files up at the top for my custom post type, custom taxonomies, and then I'm also customizing the admin interface just to have a little bit more friendly usage there to show off some metadata. Won't get too much into that, and of course this is kind of not unfamiliar. If you're used to WordPress development, here's an example of a post type registration and taxonomy registrations. And finally, I have a simple test that I've written just to make sure that one of the functions I have works for finding just advanced courses. So I'm doing all of the standard stuff to create a test, which you have to create a WordPress post, WP insert post, and all that stuff. So we'll revisit this in a little bit. But now I want to use Fresa, and to use Fresa, I will start by adding a composer.json file. So we can go to the terminal and just run composer in it. And it's going to ask you a bunch of questions. I'm just going to skip through most of them now until it asks me to define dependencies, and I'm going to say yes, and I'll just search for JPL Homer Fresa, and it'll find it. I'm just going to use the latest version. Okay, that is installed. Last thing I'm going to do is going to jump in this composer JSON file, and just to reduce the number of file imports that I'm going to have to do, I'm going to enable auto loading, which is a pretty standard thing within Composer world. I'm going to use PSR for auto loading, which means that anything starting with a particular namespace, in this case let's just say it's school as the namespace, I'm going to load from the source folder, and I'm just going to create a source folder. So we have it. Okay, and then the last step is just to run composer install, so that gets our Fresa dependencies and auto load file set up. Okay, that's installed, and then we'll hop in here. And so the first step here is to start replacing stuff that is a little bit redundant. So like I said, the post type registration is all boilerplate. We can make that really simple with Fresa. I'm not going to dive too deep into the documentation. You can do that on your own, but I just want to show you some really cool stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a course file, and this is just going to be a post model implementation. And so I'll start off by again, our namespace that we started with at the beginning is school, and I want to of course use Fresa post model as my reference, and then define my class, which is going to be course, and I'm going to extend the post model, and we'll leave it like that for now. To use that, I just need to make sure that I have my autoload file included at the top. That's the only include that we're going to need, which is awesome. I'm going to do vendor autoload. And then finally, I can actually import and use my school course file that I just created, and then just run register off of it. And that's going to do the entire post type registration process, which is really, really neat. Now if we visit the admin dashboard, you'll see that it is still there. Our course's custom post type is still in our admin dashboard. We still have everything in here that we need. If we click in, everything is here except for maybe our we had some custom fields and an excerpt. So the only thing I'm going to do is just maybe I can pass in whatever arguments I had for my other registration call and pass those in. So I'm going to just hop in there and copy a couple lines out of here. I use custom fields and excerpt. Okay, now that's in and it looks good. We have our taxonomies on the side, of course. And so step one is complete. I can go ahead and delete my entire post types file because that is unneeded now. Okay, so the next thing we can move on to is our taxonomies. We have course category and course period here. So let's create models for each of these. I'm going to start by just creating a course category class, and I'm just going to call it category. And inside here, we'll namespace it properly and make sure that we use Fresa taxonomy as the base class, and then define the class called category extends taxonomy. And then the docs say that you can use a protected variable called taxonomy just to define what taxonomy you use, otherwise it'll try to infer it. So we want to use course category as our taxonomy. I'm going to copy this and save it. I'm just going to repeat for period. Change this name to period. Pretty slick. And so now, instead of both of those files, all I have to do is import both of them and use them. I can do school category register. And the only thing I have to pass in is the post type that I run to register. Of course, that just responds to a post model. I'm going to copy this and just use the class property on that. Do the same exact thing for period. So now we should be able to comment this out and refresh the interface. And if I click into one of these, we have periods, but not course category. Of course, I forgot to change the period, the taxonomy for this, and it's overriding it. So I'm just going to change that, refresh, and now I have categories and periods working. Before, they're not using hierarchical, they're using like tag-like interface. So the only thing that I need to do is just override those definitions with some custom options, which again we can find in our original file. Course category, we want to definitely do hierarchical as true, and we want to show the admin column. And I want to do the same exact thing for period. Okay, now this is how we want it. And that means we can delete both of those files and this entire directory. Finally, we have this admin file. This admin columns is essentially creating a nice little interface. So we have credits and cost in here. And then, of course, these are included with the taxonomy registration already. But admin columns is a whole thing using two different filters. Can we make this a little simpler? Of course we can. There's this really cool thing called Fresa admin columns, which is a cool helper. And all you need to do is define the for method, and of course you just need to pass in again a post model that you've defined. So we have school course. Then you can just start defining different columns. So we want a column for credits. So let's do credits, and we can just say column credits. And it will, Fresa smartly just figures out a label for you and also tries to just pull the post meta that matches. So really, really handy if you're trying to build a dashboard quick. The other column we want is called cost. Now this one we want to add a $sign in front of. So that's super easy. Luckily, we can just say the value of this is going to be, and it will pass a closure back, and you can say for the course, I just need to return a $sign. Plus the course value, or sorry, the course cost. And again, this is just accessing post meta on the model. It's really, really simple. The final thing we want to do is we want to hide the date field, because that's a little bit useless for us. So I'm just going to hide the date. And then finally, the last thing you need to do is register. So it registers these columns. So if I hide my admin columns and refresh, and we get the same exact thing, except it is like 8 lines of code instead of an entire file with 2 different filters. So I can delete that, of course, now. And so I've deleted so many things. The last thing that we have here is just kind of some handy things that could probably live inside the model themselves, and then we can visit testing. The get credit type is definitely something you can easily just pop in as a instance method on the course class that we created. So let's copy that and move it to course. And so public function get credit type. This we don't need to pass in credits anymore because we now have this on the model instance, so I can just say this credits. So that's super fun and easy. The other function we have here is that advanced courses function. Now this is a really good candidate for just, again, another static method on our course class. It can just live and perform a query and then return the results. So let's try to replicate this inside the course model. So we're going to start by creating a public static function called advanced. And then from here we can just return the static instance and start with a where method. This is again documented on the Fresa docs, but you can say where and then pass in any sort of meta query that you want. So let's see what meta query we want. We want to do where credits is greater than 2. So let's do that. Where credits is greater than 2. Neat. And then all we got to do is just get the results for that. One last thing that I need to remember to do here is to return this from the function so that it gets a value. So I'll do that. It is passing right now. So let's refactor this test really quick to use these new Fresa features. So a really cool thing, we just want to create a new advanced course, and so I can get that by just doing, let's just define an advanced course is using, I'm going to pull in the course model up here. I'm just going to use school course, so we don't have to do that namespace every time. I'm going to do course create, and then we just need to pass in arguments. Title is always required, so I'm just going to do foo for the title, and then you can also pass in metadata right away, so you don't have to do 2 separate calls like I'm doing here. So I can do credits is 4, and then I can just comment all this out and then do the same exact thing for intermediate course. So I can do intermediate course equals course create, title foo, and then credits. We want just 2 for this one. So these things can go away. Instead of courses, get advanced courses. No, I guess technically we could run the test and see if this passes now. Cool, we're passing our tests, and so now all the stuff that we had to do to set up tests before is unnecessary, and it's really straightforward. The last part that is really handy is just using this stuff in the view. So instead of getting posts, I can run this course helper method called, I can start any query really, but I can just start by running limit 5 and then just get. And so that's going to give me the same exact thing that I want. Now I'm going to just go through and just use the accessors on my course object to build out the template. So I've turned the post meta and I added a couple helper methods in that come with post model, permalink and excerpt. The last 2 things, we're using the terms right now to try to load in category and period. Fresa has this really cool relationship concept where you can actually apply relationships to post models with taxonomies. So I can say, for instance, a course can have many categories, and all I need to do is return the has taxonomy and then whatever taxonomy I want to associate it with. So in this case it would be category. Same exact thing can go for periods. So I can say has many periods or has taxonomy periods. And we just need to make sure that we are doing plural for both of these. So then all we need to do is come back here and then use those relationships that we defined. So we are going to use the same exact name that we defined for that relationship, which is categories. And if you're using Laravel or you have used Laravel, this is going to seem really familiar. I can grab the first item of all those items and then just return the name and do the same exact thing for periods. And so let's check the front end. All right, perfect. We're getting the same exact thing for the front end that we used to have, and it's just a little bit more simple and easy to use. And then the last thing we can do is just change our course advanced search to just use that helper function we created. And then let's just copy the entire template. And it works the exact same. So that's Fresa in a nutshell. Thanks for watching. I hope you're interested in this. There's a lot more to come and a lot more we can do with this. In the meantime, please check out fresa.jplhomer.org, contribute on GitHub, and give me a star, and integrate it into your project and let me know how it goes.